Hi guys, and welcome to a build video. And today we're building this one. Okay, this is Emhar's Mark IV male World War I heavy battle tank. Okay, 35th scale. Right, the kit number is EM4001. Right, fairly simple, straightforward kit. Not much to it as far as parts are concerned, which is not too bad. Right, being a Mark IV male, she has her 6-pounder guns and also 3, and in this particular model it's supposed to be a Lewis gun. That's not a Lewis gun, by the way. It has 3 Lewis guns, one on the front and one on either side of the sponsons. For the Lewis guns, I'm going to use some aftermarkets because the Emhar guns are, let's just say, not exactly looking like Lewis guns. So I'm going to be using these from Aber or Aber, I can't remember how you pronounce it. Right, these are their barrels for British WWI tank Mark IV female, which has 5 Lewis guns in it. This is suitable for a TACOM, Tamiya, and an Emhar. Okay, so just those to add a little bit more detail. Apart from that, that's the only aftermarkets I'm using. And away we go. Let's have a look. Right, fairly basic, straightforward instructions and the parts. All right, so I'm not going to bore you with taking the parts off the sprues. I'm pretty sure we all know how that works. So let's get building. Move this out of the way and away we go. All right, so first step in this build will be to replace those what's called, laughingly called, Lewis guns. Okay, that is the Emhar one. This is an ICM Lewis gun from their World War I British weapons set. Okay, and these are the Aber aftermarkets. So you get the barrel end, and the insert, which is the actual barrel of the Lewis gun, plus aftermarket sights and bipod, you name it. And the good thing about these Aber ones, okay, and that's the number for it, 35L156, it does actually show you what size hole. So if you're replacing, say, your Tamiya or your TACOM one or whatever, okay, tells you what size hole to drill, which means I know exactly what size hole to drill in that once I've cut this part off. So I will give you a still photo of the comparison stages so you can give a really good idea of what it's going to look like when it's finished, and then we'll carry on. Right guys, one thing to be careful of when putting the back plate on. This little diagram here shows you exactly where that's supposed to fit. Okay, so this is your back plate. It will only fit one way. That is the top. This is where the box goes on the back. This is your bottom of the tank. And as you can see, the cutout, it needs to fit, all right, like that. Okay, and you need to put this on first, right? Because there is no other support. There are no locating pins or anything for the front, and it will just literally slide anywhere it wants to. It will be an interesting challenge to make sure that this sits correctly. I may actually cut the side sections off, these parts here, as a little bit of bracing once I put that, and then I'll worry about putting the accessories and things like that on. All right, so let's get this glued. Okay, so the body's together. You do glue this bottom part first, okay, and it does fit together quite well. All right, then you put the top on. As you can see, I've already put this hatch on. I'm about to put the box on the back. The trick to putting this on, because there's nothing to support it, okay, is glue the front first, okay. Make sure that both the up and down edges are flat and straight on both sides. That should help make sure that you do get this square. This top join here is not good. I'm not sure if I can actually show that to you. It doesn't sit solid, but it does sit quite well enough to glue, but the indents don't match up, so it is a bit fiddly. But that's the only issue I had, was a little bit of a fiddle around to make sure that this lined up and sat square. But apart from that, this is really nicely solid now, and I do like that. So I'm going to finish putting the box on, okay, and then I'm going to put the insides, well, the inner sides, I should say, not the insides, the inner sides on, and we'll see what that looks like. First major issue is these, and I'm not sure why Emhar didn't just create an entire one piece that fitted perfectly. But as you can see, and I have rechecked the fronts several times, they are square and keyed in where they're supposed to be. These two pieces here stick out proud of the back plate, okay, and meaning this sits, which is supposed to sit here, has a large gap, which means I'm going to have to cut these down. Everything seems to be fine. Bottom and the back plates are locked in and keyed in exactly where they're supposed to be. So this bit here is too long. It's going to have to be trimmed down so that I can glue this on. And you have to note that there is literally nothing, no keying, no tabs, nothing, which is going to keep this in place while it glues. So just sheer luck more than anything else. It would have been nice if there'd been a slot in this plate here, which this fitted into. Bang, done, easy, not going anywhere. But no, it's free to move while it glues. So that's something you're going to have to be aware of. Okay, so I'm going to cut these off. Do a bit of fiddling. It's going to take a bit to cut it, sand it, cut it, sand it, cut it, sand it, but eventually it will work just like it's supposed to. Okay, so after a fair bit of fiddling, you can see I've got the inner back ends on. Okay, I put the box in that gives these a bit of support, and what I've also done is I've added some spare sprue either side to hold them in place as well, because there is literally nothing holding those two pieces apart from the grace of the gods. Okay, I've checked on the cutting board to make sure that this is straight, so that is basically it so far. Okay, so next is putting the tracks on, and I think I've decided to leave that till last, because the tracks actually, they don't sit in this channel. Okay, they don't sit down in there, they actually sit on top of this line here and also on top of the sides. So the tracks are going to be left till last. What I'm going to do is put the wheels on first, okay, and then I'm going to attach the sides of the tank. So this is the front, goes on here, okay, and this is the back. The one interesting thing about this is, again, there are no locators, okay, so literally this just slides. That's why I'm putting the wheels on, so hopefully the wheels will help keep it in the right spot, but there's nothing, absolutely nothing to stop this from sliding wherever it feels like doing. So that's going to be an interesting challenge. And the other challenge is, this is the wheel, right? I have filed them down, okay, sanded down to flat, and I see if I can show you, if I can get it in focus, somewhere around about here. If you have a look at the pin, all right, for these wheels, it's tapered. So guess what? The wheels wobble. All right, another challenge. They don't actually sit flat. I've already done a test fit. See if I can show you. Get the back bit. Put this on here. That goes on there. In actual fact, there's a nice big gap between the hull, right where my finger is, right there, because the wheel is not sitting flat, because the pins are not sitting flat. So that's the next challenge. Fix the wheels, get the sides on. So this is probably the most difficult part of this whole kit, is getting this bit, which has no locators at all, inside or out. Right, it does have two, so you can see it right where my thumb is, right there. Two kind of locators, but the thing is, they're too low. Right, they sit the side of the hull right down here. Right, so yeah, interesting challenge. I'm going to have to fix those pins so the wheels sit flat, and then I will glue the sides on, and we'll see where we go from there. Okay, so here we go again. Bit more messing around. Okay, so holding the tracks into some boiling hot water in a cup, successfully softened them enough so that I could put them on the tank, and then literally all I had to do was clamp them on the ends like that, and then let that cool, and there you go. Really nice curve. Do that to all the tracks. These are the long sections, of course, and you shouldn't have a problem. A note though, right? In reality, okay, when fixing the tracks, so on the real tank, the bottom level here is completely within the hull sides, right? So it's flat because of the weight of the tank. But if you look at actual photos of the Mark IVs, whether it's a female or a male, you'll notice that the track itself sits above the top hull. Okay, so that just comes to when you're gluing it, it's going to be sitting a little bit proud. It will not, or it shouldn't in reality, sit down inside this grooved area here, right? It should just sit on top of it. All right, so I'm going to continue on, glue the tracks on, and then we'll see where we go from there. Okay, so tracks are done, both on, and yes, as you can see, okay, so flat on the bottom, all nicely lined up. Wasn't particularly hard, but I did notice that the right track slightly shorter than the left one. That's interesting. Should have measured those. And yes, when you've laid it out, got it in place and glued it, you'll have stretch points where the sections meet. So that's why I filled them with a little bit of putty. Once it's painted, you won't even notice it. Okay, so basically she's starting to come together. Next step is this one, putting the exhaust pipe on. So one thing I've already noticed is that these pins do not actually line up perfectly with the holes. So I've had to file them down slightly, okay, and that will basically sits there. That's fine. The issue you're going to have is, and I'll see if I can show you this. This is how the exhaust pipe is supposed to be, okay? And that is supposed to be straight. It's not supposed to be a bent pipe. It is supposed to be straight. So this is 7 mils. I don't know why it says 7 mils, because literally you have these sections here, which are the back box, and that's where the exhaust pipe goes through. All you've got to do is literally measure it and then get the exhaust pipe. Of course, what I've found is that when you do this, the exhaust pipe actually bends. As you can see, it's supposed to be a straight line, and that's actually a bent line. So I'm not quite sure. I'm going to give it a go with some really hot water and see if I can just stretch the plastic accordingly. Otherwise, it's going to be a cut and paste. Okay, well, we'll see how we go with that. Anyway, onward and upward. Okay, so as you can see, exhaust pipe's in, relatively straight. I put the back box on, so it's quite easy once you've got this straightened. And yes, I did put this in hot water and made the bend while it was still warm. Really worked really well. Okay, made the box up separately and then let that set. Attached it to the back here, which kept everything in place. I've already attached one of the sponsons, and they do just literally fit nicely, although there is gaps around the bottom here, which will need to be filled. Okay, and they do, like I said, they do fit quite easy, right? So it's just a matter of, and what I done, there's good English for you. What I did is, and just run a little bit along here. It's getting a bit runny there. That's okay, a little bit there. So I love this glue, but it does get very runny sometimes. And the sponson just goes here, and it will literally just fit like that. Okay, done. And it does fit in there. Keep that in place. And again, there are gaps down the bottom here, which will need to be filled. Because once you come to painting, they will show up quite badly. But apart from that, this Mark IV is almost finished. So I'm going to let these sponsons set properly, do a little bit of filling, and then I'm going to attach the top rails. Okay, so almost finished. Sponsons are on, everything else is on. As you can see, I've already put one of the rails on the top. Okay, there are gaps between these pieces which will need to be filled, but I haven't filled around the sponsons yet, so that's not a drama. Just to show you how I did it, pretty easy. This short piece is the front. You have got two pieces which make up the top of the rail. The part with the upright is the front one. Okay, so the indent goes on the outside. This is the back one. All right, fairly simple, fairly straightforward. All I did was I attached the short front piece first, and it goes here above the track adjuster. All right, comes up to the edge here. Once I had that in place, I put some glue on the ends, and then literally just put that in, glued that there. The upright goes at this point right here. Okay, next to that top hatch. Yes, it is supposed to be angled down. It does actually sit just above the back box there, like that. And once you've got that in place and it's almost set, okay, that's just a matter of then putting the back piece on. This angle, the other angle, and that will actually get you exactly where it fits, which is just about there. And that's it. And that's it. That will be done. All I've got to do after I put that on is just do a little bit of filling, and she will be done, finished, and ready for painting. Okay, so now we get to painting the Mark IV, and first up, the tank will receive a complete cover in black primer, heavily thinned down so it goes on quite smoothly, dries fairly quickly, and covers all the surfaces, top and bottom. After the black primer is dry, I'll then go over it with a white primer, thinned down again, to highlight all the different panels and give a bit of variation to the top coat when it finally gets on by lightening and increasing certain portions, etc. Okay, so now we get to the choice of color for the actual tank itself. So there's a lot of variation in online sources. Some say they were battleship grey, some say they were a dark khaki, some say that they were green. Green came into use later in the war for almost all British tanks. Early tanks, I think Mark I Whippets, were painted in camouflage, and then they dropped that. Some tanks did turn up in battleship grey, but most of them were a brown colour. Some sources say khaki, right? Some say a darker khaki. So I chose 6 of my colours. These 2 are model colours. That means they're basically designed for use with paintbrushes, but can be thinned down for airbrush use. And then I chose 4 other colours. This one, too much red. This one's a little lighter than what I thought, so I decided to go for this one here. German Yellow Brown, 71272. Okay. Okay, so the tank has now received its coats of brown. Okay, and there is, although you may not be able to see it, there is a reasonable amount of shadowing along the bolt lines. Okay, I still got to put a wash on those, but that'll be later. So at the moment, I'm painting the tracks. A good basis for steel track like this is to actually paint them in a dark grey. In this instance, I'm using this one, German Panzer Grey. It is Vallejo's surface primer. It's very good colour for steel tracks and also for rubber tyres on light coloured vehicles that are painted in sand yellow or something like that. Okay, so all I'm going to do is give these tracks a reasonable coat of the dark grey. So let's carry on and we'll finish these tracks. Okay, so just a quick one on how I apply my washes. So I only use acrylic. I only use acrylic washes. I don't use enamels or oils or anything like this. So what I normally do is I just wet the area first. Okay, give it a reasonable wetness because you want it wet. Nice clean water, clean brush. Okay. Then for this particular tank, I'm using a Sepia Wash from Vallejo, and all I ever do is just with a nice brush, just do that. Okay. Now it might look a bit over the top to start with, but when it dries, it will actually dry quite subtle, really subtle, but it is a way of picking out all these things. And what I also do while I'm doing this is I do a bit of streaking. So if you look at photos of most tanks, especially World War I tanks, they've been splattered with mud and they've been rained on and you name it. They've had troops sitting on the top with dirty boots, and this is all I do. Add a bit of streaking. It not only disperses the wash, but it adds a bit of character to the whole tank. All right, And this is basically the first stage in your weathering, right? It's just a streaking wash, that's all it is. And all of a sudden, you can see how it's come out. And if it gets too much, you think, oh, well, that's a bit much. All you do is grab another clean brush and do this, because it's still wet. And all of a sudden, you've taken most of your wash off, and you can start again. And put it on light to start with. Do another coat if you need to. Quite easy. Alright, I'm going to finish the rest of this tank, and then I'll give you some shots of the finished wash. And then next step is proper weathering. And there you have it, guys. That is Emhar's Mark IV male British heavy battle tank, 1/35 scale, kit number EM4001. Not a bad kit to build, actually. fairly straightforward. A couple of minor challenges, but nothing that anyone could actually have a problem overcoming, and quite an enjoyable build. I did enjoy building this one. I actually enjoyed weathering it, making it look like a seriously muddy tank. Anyway, I hope you got something from this video. As usual, guys, thank you for your likes, subscriptions, and comments. And until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.